My 29-year-old wife, Jessica, who is absolutely gorgeous, dropped a bombshell on me in the most direct terms possible. To set the scene, I had planned an extravagant dinner at one of our favorite high-end spots. Everything was perfect, from the crisp white tablecloths to the stellar wine list. I even bought her a diamond necklace she'd been admiring, which set me back nearly $1,000. Little did I know I'd soon be desperate to recover that cost. Throughout dinner, I sensed something was off. Our usually easygoing conversations had an unusual tension. Jessica seemed distracted, her eyes darting around the room as if she was searching for someone or something. Normally, she would look at me with steady, loving eyes, but tonight her gaze wandered restlessly. After we finished the main course and had more wine, she finally spoke up about what was on her mind. "Tom, there's something I need to talk to you about," she started, her voice serious and a bit shaky. I put down my wine glass, trying to read her face. What could she possibly mean? Her demeanor had shifted to one of deep seriousness, hinting that a major discussion was coming. I wondered if she was talking about starting a family. We had discussed it before and decided to wait until we were more established in our careers and financially secure. Now that we were, I was excited about the idea, but her reluctance to make eye contact suggested something else entirely. "Jessica, we need to have a serious conversation," she began, her expression somber. "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching, and this means a great deal to me." Her voice trembled slightly. "I need to explore my identity beyond our relationship. I believe it'll ultimately make me a better partner for you in the long run." I was stunned, my thoughts spinning. "What exactly are you suggesting?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Leaning forward, I tried to meet her eyes, but she looked away. "I want to pursue relationships with other people, Tom," she confessed. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. My heart pounded and my face grew hot. "What exactly do you mean by other people?" I asked, my voice rising with a mix of disbelief and anger. "Are you talking about seeing other men?" She hesitated, biting her lip. "Yes, that's part of it," she finally admitted. The room seemed to spin. "You're saying you want to date other men and expect me to be okay with it?" I couldn't contain my frustration. "Jessica, how can you possibly think this is acceptable?" She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "I still love you, Tom. That hasn't changed. I just need to explore this part of myself. It's something I have to do," she explained, but her words felt like a betrayal. Despite her calm demeanor, I couldn't understand it. Sitting there, with the restaurant's buzz fading into the background, I realized our lives might never be the same. "What in the world are you saying, Jessica?" I asked, shock evident in my voice. "You want to have an affair and expect me to simply agree while you go off with other men? Good grief." My words were louder than intended, drawing the attention of other diners. "Lower your voice, Tom," Jessica hissed. "We don't need everyone eavesdropping." It dawned on me that she had chosen this busy restaurant assuming I wouldn't cause a scene in public. She had blindsided me, and I felt completely disoriented. My stomach churned, a sick feeling rising, threatening to undo our entire meal. The only question I could manage was, "Why, Jessica? Why other men?" She looked at me, her eyes gentle yet determined. "No, Tom, I'm not leaving you. There are many reasons why I believe I need to do this. Please trust me when I say I love you deeply. You're my soulmate. I see a future where we grow old together and start a family. But right now, there are parts of myself that I need to understand better. I'm asking you for a short time to explore this. Afterward, I'll be fully devoted to you again, I promise." Her words were meant to comfort, but they hung heavy between us, filled with uncertainty. Could I really accept this? Could our marriage survive it? The thought plagued me as I sat there trying to process her request. This had to be the ultimate betrayal. On our 5th anniversary dinner, my wife blindsided me by expressing her desire to see other men. She expected me to acquiesce as if nothing was amiss, assuring me that afterward, everything would go back to normal, as though nothing had happened. She even claimed it would make her a better wife. I was speechless, my thoughts a tangled mess, struggling to breathe, feeling as though my world was collapsing. I felt like I was living a bad dream. Rising from my seat, I placed my napkin on the table, gulped down my wine, and set the glass down without saying a word. I turned and headed for the exit. "Tom, where are you going?" Jessica called out. "I don't know," I replied without looking back. "You should probably take a cab home." I walked out of the restaurant, found my car, and drove. I didn't have a destination, I just needed to get away. My head pounded, pain radiating from the base of my skull, making it hard to concentrate. I drove aimlessly, the hum of the engine and the blur of passing streetlights lulling me into a daze. Time and place lost all meaning. The next morning, I woke up in my car, my head still throbbing with unfamiliar surroundings. Stepping out, I stretched and surveyed the area, hoping last night had been a bad dream. My first priority was finding a bathroom and a strong cup of coffee. Before heading home, I needed a plan. After relieving myself behind a bush, I got back in the car and drove off in search of coffee. I found a small diner and ordered breakfast along with my coffee. Sitting there, I tried to figure out my next move. Letting Jessica date other men was out of the question. It would surely end our marriage. Despite her assurances, I couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't the woman I thought I married. Maybe she was going through some kind of crisis, coming up with ideas that made no sense. I'm no psychiatrist, just a confused guy. I turned on my phone, which had been off all night, and saw numerous texts and missed calls from Jessica. She was worried about me. I wasn't ready to go home or talk to her, but I knew avoiding the issue wasn't the answer. I decided not to respond to her messages just yet. After several cups of coffee and a hearty breakfast, I came up with a rough plan. It was time to face the issue head-on. When I pulled into the driveway, Jessica rushed out, her face full of worry. "Tom, where were you all night?" "I was terrified you might have been in an accident or worse," she exclaimed, reaching for a kiss. Stepping back, I said firmly, "Jessica, I need to freshen up first. Then we need to sit down and discuss this self-exploration idea you brought up last night." With that, I walked past her and headed for the bedroom to change out of the clothes I'd slept in. I took a long, hot shower, using the time to gather my thoughts. Doubts filled my mind. I had to figure out if Jessica was still my wife or if this was the beginning of the end. Maybe it was a test of my commitment. Trying to understand her thoughts was driving me crazy. I loved her deeply. We had shared vows, a beautiful wedding, and a honeymoon in Europe. The idea of being with someone else had never crossed my mind. I was all in, but now it seemed she wasn't. Thankfully, we didn't have kids, which simplified things. Whether that would change depended on the coming days and weeks. After dressing in fresh clothes, I went to the kitchen to make another cup of coffee. Grabbing a notepad and pen, I saw Jessica sitting at the kitchen island, watching me. I tried to stay calm despite the turmoil inside. Coffee in hand, I sat down across from her. "Jessica, can you explain again why you want to explore relationships outside our marriage?" I began. Jessica met my eyes. "Tom, I need to feel validated as a woman. Right now, I don't feel like my needs are being met. I need to figure out what those needs are." "So you're unsure of your needs and want to discover them?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "And you think a temporary break from our relationship will help?" "No, Tom, I won't leave. I'll stay here with you," Jessica answered quickly. "But I need the freedom to set my own schedule and do things my own way." "When do you plan to start this exploration and new routine?" I asked. "Well, I guess I could start any time," she said uncertainly. "Do you support my decision?" "No, Jessica, I don't support any of this," I replied firmly. "When we got married, we promised to be partners for life. Now you want to date other people. What am I supposed to think? It feels like you're giving up on our marriage." "Tom, it's not that simple," Jessica said, frustration in her voice. "I'm looking for a connection that's been missing for a couple of years now. Our lives have become all about work. I don't feel appreciated by you like I did when we first got married." "Appreciated? Good Lord, everything I do is for us," I fired back, feeling my anger rise. "I've been working my butt off to build the future we dreamed of when we got married. We're so close to paying off this house." I knew I had to tackle the main issue. "Are you planning to get involved with other men?" I asked, trying to keep calm. "Tom, I can't say for sure. If it feels right with someone, I might consider it," she replied, avoiding my eyes. So you're thinking about cheating then? I pressed, disbelief clear in my voice. It's not cheating, Tom. It's not infidelity if you know about it, she answered calmly. My heart pounded. Taking a deep breath, I wished my coffee was something stronger. I needed to stay composed. Let me get this straight, Jessica, I said, trying to make sense of it. You want to meet other men, go out with them, and maybe get physical, but still live here with me. Is that what you're saying? Tom, it's not that simple. I'm still figuring it out, Jessica responded, her voice shaky. It sounds pretty straightforward to me, I countered. What about us? Are we supposed to hit pause on our marriage? Do you expect us to still be intimate while you explore this? Absolutely. We're a family, you and I. I love you, and I want us to stay a family. But I need to do this for myself, she explained, her eyes begging for understanding. And how often do you plan to do this, Jessica? Every weekend? Multiple times a week? Every night? How far are you planning to go with this? I pushed. I haven't decided yet, Tom. Why are you so hung up on the details? Jessica asked, frustration creeping in. I need to know what my life will be like while you're out with other men. I don't have a girlfriend, Jessica. Not yet, at least, I said, bitterness seeping into my voice. Taking a deep breath, I tried to control my anger. Jessica, I need clarity. Have you really thought this through? Have you considered what it will do to our marriage? Jessica nodded, but didn't give a clear answer. It seemed she hadn't thought about my feelings at all. Then she said the words that would shape our future. If you love me, you'll let me do this. I replied firmly, if you love me, Jessica, you won't go through with this. Here are my conditions. If you decide to see other men, you need to move out. I won't share a home with you while you're dating and getting involved with others. Bringing them here is off limits. You'll have to find somewhere else to stay. Tom, where am I supposed to go? She asked, desperation in her voice. Maybe you can stay with one of your friends like Sarah. You've spent time with her and she lives alone. If that's not an option, you can rent a short-term apartment. You'll cover all the costs, rent, utilities, and your car payments, I stated. Jessica worked as a third-grade teacher, earning a decent salary. I was a forensic auditing specialist for a top firm, with a good income and yearly bonuses. From her comments, it seemed I wasn't meeting all her needs. Jessica seemed to see my willingness to compromise as a weakness, assuming she had the upper hand. Continuing, I said, so if you want an open marriage, I guess I'll have to be patient while you have your flings. Will you come back to our home eventually, Jessica? Tom, absolutely. I love you. You're my husband, and I see us building a family together, she replied. What am I supposed to do while you're with other men? Do you expect me to stay faithful? Should I wait for you with open arms after you're done with your boyfriends? Have you thought about how this affects me? I asked, my voice rising. I want you as my husband, Tom, and only you. No matter what I do while I'm away, my feelings for you won't change. When I come back, I want you to be my husband and the father of our children, she declared. I couldn't help but find this declaration of love bizarre. Even though I said no boyfriends in our home, she seemed to see this as a win. She could engage with other men without worrying about my reaction. Fine, you need to arrange your accommodations and let me know by the end of the week. But we have some things to sort out right now. Move your clothes and belongings to the spare bedroom. I can't share the same bed with you right now. Your plan is too upsetting, and it feels like you're leaving me even if you haven't said it directly. Jessica stayed quiet, maybe realizing that I wouldn't just roll over and accept her proposal. She might have been surprised by my demand for her to leave our bed, but what did she expect? Did she think I was a doormat, willing to let her have affairs and then come home to play the happy couple? Eventually having kids and acting like nothing ever happened? No way. Jessica was friends with another teacher, Sarah, and I suspected some of these ideas were coming from her. Sarah, a divorced fourth-grade teacher at the same school, had been caught cheating on her husband with several partners 2 years ago, leading to her divorce. At 35, Sarah was attractive and had a magnetic personality, but she had a reputation for sleeping with any man who gave her attention. I strongly suspected that Sarah was influencing Jessica's desire to explore before starting a family. For me, it was simple. If Jessica went too far, there wouldn't be a family, not with me. All that would be left was a divorce. I stood up from the table and started to walk away. Jessica asked, "Is that it, Tom? Are you asking me to leave?" "Yeah, for now. Let me be clear, Jessica. I don't want you to go through with any of this. We vowed to be faithful when we got married, and now you're planning to break that vow. So what exactly do you expect me to do? Do you think I'll just stand by while you see other men? If you want an open marriage, then I guess I'll have the same option." Jessica was left speechless, and I walked out before our conversation turned into a fight. Grabbing my car keys, I headed for the door. "Tom, where are you going?" she called after me. "I'm not sure right now, but remember to move your stuff to the spare room and start looking for a place to stay. You won't be having any affairs until you've moved out," I replied as I left, slamming the door louder than usual. I briefly considered driving to Sarah's apartment to confront her, but I knew I needed to manage my anger for now. It was Jessica who had started this, and she could deal with the consequences. Plus, I suspected Sarah would welcome Jessica with open arms, and I had to resist the urge to confront her physically. Monday morning, I was up and out of the house before Jessica even woke up. With her plans in mind, I had a lot to do. I wasn't going to tolerate her infidelity. It hurt that she thought she could have affairs, expecting me to stand by, let it happen, and then pretend everything was fine when she returned. What if she came back with an STD or worse, pregnant? No way. I wouldn't stand for it. Step one was contacting my attorney. Luckily, my attorney was a friend who handled various legal matters, from real estate to wills. While I didn't expect him to manage the divorce directly, he could give me a good recommendation. He did just that, referring me to a skilled divorce lawyer from his firm. I had a meeting scheduled with her that same afternoon. It would be a tough discussion, but my new lawyer was an experienced litigator who knew our state's laws inside and out. I aimed to keep this as friendly as possible. I was okay with a fair 5,050 split of our assets. We didn't have much when we got married, and we both worked hard to build a comfortable life together until now. So I was ready to divide things evenly. I wasn't heartless, and fighting over stuff would just drag out the divorce. The assets weren't worth keeping if it meant dealing with a cheating wife. The paperwork would be prepared and held until I had proof of her infidelity. Until then, this was just the first step. The week dragged on. I made a point of spending as little time at home as possible, going out every evening, mostly to the gym to blow off steam. I saw Jessica spending a lot of time with Sarah. By Thursday, she told me she'd be staying with Sarah for a couple of weeks until she found a better place. I knew it would be easy for her to be with her boyfriends without me around. It looked like Sarah was also entertaining her own lovers, turning this into quite the mess. This whole situation was a disaster. On Saturday, just a week after our 5th wedding anniversary, Jessica's decision to pursue affairs became clear as she packed her belongings into her car, ready to leave. However, she paused just before leaving. "Tom, I don't want to go." "Are you absolutely sure we can find a way to work this out so I can stay?" she pleaded. "I love you so much, and I really want to make our marriage better." Feeling drained, I replied, "Jessica, if you truly loved me and wanted to improve our marriage, you wouldn't be doing this. I do want you here with me, but I can't accept you being close with other men while still being my wife. I love you, but I can't tolerate that. If you're not willing to try marriage counseling to fix our issues, then I don't know what else to say. Please just go." As she loaded her things into her car, I drove to the hardware store to buy new locks for the house. I replaced 3 locks and changed the security code for the garage door. I spent all Saturday night and Sunday at home staring at the walls, hoping Jessica would realize her mistake and come back. The following week was extremely tough. I hit the gym every day and took up running again to deal with the stress. Sometimes I felt so low I wanted to beg Jessica to come back. I still couldn't understand how my wife was leaving me to have affairs while we were still married. It made me feel like a complete failure. Was I really so inadequate that my wife was willing to flaunt her infidelity? It seemed so. I turned to the internet to understand the psychology behind infidelity and why spouses cheat. I was stunned to learn that about 40 of married people cheat. Even more surprising was that nearly 90 of them stay in their marriages. Often, infidelity is silently tolerated by the other spouse, especially when there are kids involved, making it easier for them to accept the unfaithfulness and go on as if nothing happened. Many cheating wives claim they still love their husbands and families but seek excitement outside the marriage, feeling something is missing at home. Many women who have affairs say that their households demand a lot of effort. The daily grind of managing a family, juggling kids' activities, and handling mundane chores can make intimacy with their husbands feel boring. They crave excitement with a lover who focuses solely on them without immediately talking about kids or errands after being intimate. Maybe the key to a successful marriage is to treat your wife like you did when you first met, minus the cheating, just enjoying each other physically. I even thought about trying to pick up Jessica at the club she and Sarah often went to. People have affairs for different reasons: a lack of sexual satisfaction in the relationship, an absence of passion, or a loss of connection between spouses. Sometimes, it's even to get back at their partner's infidelity. Some women claim they cheat to save their marriages, though I'm skeptical about that. But that's what researchers studying marital infidelity have reported. Marriage is complicated, and relationships need work. Open marriages, where both spouses agree to have other relationships and sexual partners, rarely survive in the long run. Emotional attachments form, feelings get hurt, and most couples end up divorcing. Polyamorous marriages are just as complicated, especially with kids involved. The risk of bringing a sexually transmitted disease into the relationship is always there. Personally, I believe monogamy is the best approach in marriage. If both partners don't agree, they should reconsider their commitment to each other or find different people to be with. Did I neglect my wife and push her away? Did I not give her enough attention while I focused on building our future? Was I wrong? I'm not sure. What I do know is that I felt miserable about my wife leaving our home to have affairs. She was looking for things she thought I wasn't providing, but I didn't see her actions making our marriage better. And so the next week dragged on. I didn't call my wife, and Jessica only sent one text asking me to forward her mail to her new address. Her message gave no hint that she wanted to save our marriage. It was all business. It was clear she was determined to find a boyfriend, or maybe even two, for some fun. The thought crossed my mind to follow her from her apartment to wherever she and Sarah were going, just to see who she was meeting. I drove by the apartment several times but resisted the urge to stop. I knew I couldn't put myself through that. I had to let her make her choice, or she would never really be my wife again. With each passing day, the chances of her coming back grew smaller, and the longer this went on, the less I wanted her back. I had started to accept that I might never take her back. A month had gone by with almost no communication when, out of the blue, Jessica appeared at the house unannounced. Finding her key didn't work, she rang the doorbell and knocked. I opened the door, trying to remain impassive. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" I asked. "Tom, my key doesn't work. What's going on?" she said, sounding puzzled. "I changed the locks," I answered bluntly, blocking her from entering. "Why are you here, Jessica?" "I came to collect some things I left behind when I moved in with Sarah," she said. Once again, her visit wasn't about seeing me, it was strictly business. Did she really think I wouldn't care about her affairs with other men, or that I'd eventually take her back? "There are some boxes in the garage with your stuff that I gathered," I told her. "Why did you do that, Tom?" she asked, bewildered. I let her in because, after all, it was still partly her home. We walked to the garage where she saw numerous boxes filled with her belongings ready for her to take. "How long are you planning to stay with Sarah?" I asked. "Sarah has been really supportive. I'll be with her for a while longer. I'm sure it'll only be a few more months, and then I'll be back as a better wife to you, Tom. Then we can start a family together." I couldn't help but feel a mix of disbelief and disgust at her comment. How could she believe that her involvement with other men would make her a better wife and prepare her for motherhood? I had entirely different thoughts on the matter. "So, have you found a boyfriend yet?" I asked bluntly. Jessica blushed and didn't need to answer. I already knew. She finally admitted, Sarah and I have been on some dates with guys from the club, but that's it. I couldn't resist probing further. How's the physical part with your new boyfriends? Jessica turned even redder and began rummaging through the boxes. I left the garage and went back to the kitchen to have my coffee and read the newspaper. A few minutes later, she walked in with a large bag and looked around the kitchen, maybe expecting chaos. To her surprise, it was quite the opposite. I had hired a cleaning crew to come 3 times a week, so the place was spotless, no dirty dishes, no empty beer bottles, no piles of laundry. The house was in perfect order, and I focused on maintaining my composure despite my wife's decision to pursue relationships with other men. Need anything else, Jessica? I asked, sensing her curiosity about how things were without her. So, Tom, how have you been since I moved in with Sarah? She asked. I'm fine, I said. Work keeps me busy, and I've been traveling a lot. Concerned, she asked, have you been going out or just staying home alone? There it was, the crucial question I anticipated. It was time to introduce a twist into the conversation and see her reaction. I've been keeping busy, I said. I joined a cycling group that meets twice a week. It's been enjoyable, and I've met new people. Afterward, we usually grab a beer and a burger. I avoid drinking too much, knowing it wouldn't help me. My weight had dropped due to exercise and stress from her actions. Staying active was crucial for preventing a breakdown. Her response showed more interest in my activities than her initial question implied. She might have started to realize that her plan wasn't going as expected. It was possible her loyal husband could meet someone else and no longer need to stay married to her. Her quest to find a boyfriend might have bigger consequences than she thought. I later found out that Jessica had been seeing 2 men from the club she and Sarah frequented and had been physically involved with both of them on multiple occasions. However, neither showed interest in spending quality time with her beyond their encounters. Both men were married and sought only casual fun, using Jessica as their source of entertainment, a classic case of pump and dump. By the 2-month mark, I had come to terms with the end of my marriage and was ready to move on to the next phase of my plan. Jessica had been silent for weeks, indicating her lack of concern for me or our marriage. She was free to pursue her desires without any thought of coming back home. Even if she did consider returning, it would be under various conditions, and I wasn't sure if I would accept her. Adding to my doubts, I learned that she had taken a vacation to the Dominican Republic with one of her boyfriends during the school break. They enjoyed a sun-soaked getaway, supposedly working on their tans and other indulgences. If this was her idea of strengthening our marriage through infidelity, it was a colossal failure. The influence of Sarah's persuasive stories, painting me as a neglectful husband who had ignored my wife's needs, had swayed Jessica's perspective before she decided to leave our marriage. Now she lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with her dissatisfied, divorced friend, and her reputation among colleagues and family members was rapidly declining. When Jessica's mother learned that her daughter had traveled to the Caribbean with another man, the situation took another dramatic turn. She contacted me to inquire about our separation. She likely assumed we had been having marital issues. I revealed to her that her daughter had left me to pursue sexual relationships with other men, a revelation she found hard to believe. I encouraged her to talk directly to Jessica to get the truth. Jessica's mother confronted her. Jessica, why did you leave your home? What's going on between you and Tom? Is he mistreating you? Jessica responded, No, Mom, he's not mistreating me, but he doesn't give me the excitement I'm currently seeking from a man. I don't feel desired or attractive to him. I need that feeling of being wanted, so I'm seeking it elsewhere for now. I want to have some fun before Tom and I start a family. I plan to return to him in a few months when he'll appreciate me more, and everything will be fine. You'll see. Her mother was shocked by her response and earnestly warned her, Dear, if you engage in extramarital affairs, Tom will not want you as his wife. Cheating on him is the quickest way to end your marriage. Don't you understand that? I know Tom loves me, Mom, Jessica countered confidently. He understands my needs. I'll come back home in a few months, maybe a year at most, and then we'll start a family. Dear, you need to come back to your senses and return home now, her mother urged. or there won't be a marriage or a husband waiting for you, and there definitely won't be any children with him. Do you grasp what I'm saying?" "Mom, I'm sure Tom loves me," Jessica insisted, standing firm in her beliefs. Even her mother's sincere efforts couldn't sway her. Adopting the mindset of what's good for the goose is good for the gander, I decided to explore the possibility of life without her. It had been about 3 months since Jessica left, and it was time for me to move on. Summoning the courage, I asked a woman I knew from cycling for a date, seeking female companionship and a break from the monotonous routine I had endured since my wife moved out. My daily routine revolved around work, the gym, cycling, and sleep, repeating day after day as I waited for this chaos to end. Part of me hoped Jessica would come to her senses and return home, but it seemed unlikely. I had to face the reality that she probably wouldn't come back, at least not as the wife I married or the woman I once knew. It seemed she was enjoying her newfound freedom, seeking the excitement and validation that had been lacking in our marriage, echoing the motivation psychologists attribute to married women who cheat on their husbands. I decided to arrange a date without appearing overly desperate or randomly hitting on someone that might seem too odd. I wanted to get to know the people in my cycling group and have them know me before considering inviting one of the women on a date. I wanted it to be a genuine connection, not a sympathy date. Most of my cycling friends were aware of my separation from my wife, and I suspected that some might even know about Jessica's active dating life. In a city not that large, word tends to spread. When I asked Diane, one of the women in the group, to join me for tea or a drink, I was pleasantly surprised when she agreed. I suggested a casual Saturday night outing to a nice place and planned for us to go kayaking on a nearby lake before dinner. I had some experience with kayaking from a few years back, so I knew what to do. Diane had never kayaked before, but she showed interest, and we agreed on the plan. So it became a date. We had an enjoyable kayaking adventure covering approximately 10 miles in about 3 hours. Later, we dined at a charming restaurant where I ordered a craft beer with steak and fries while Diane chose white wine with pasta. The atmosphere was relaxed and laid back with no pressure. We concluded the evening with ice cream from a waterfront stand, and I drove her home. I expressed my delight at the evening, intending to give her a kiss on the cheek, but she surprised me by leaning in and kissing me on the lips. It was a pleasant and unexpected moment. To avoid seeming too eager, I waited until our regular Tuesday cycling meetup to suggest another date. Surprisingly, Diane expressed concern that my lack of communication meant I didn't enjoy our time together. I assured her that I had a wonderful time and cherished our outing and her company. We arranged a Saturday date for a round of golf. Having read online about the delicate balance of texting and calling to maintain interest, I sent Diane a text on Friday expressing my excitement for our golf game and proposing a pickup time, offering her the option to meet at the golf club if she preferred. She preferred I pick her up, so we settled on an early afternoon time. Our time on the golf course was enjoyable despite our amateur skills. That evening we dined at my place, enjoying a barbecue and a bottle of wine. As the night grew late and I prepared to drive her home, Diane took the car keys from me, placed them on the kitchen counter, and asked to see the bedroom. The next morning I awoke beside a striking woman, Diane, with her arm resting on my chest. She had long dark hair, captivating green eyes, and flawless skin, with a small scar on her chin adding character to her lovely face. Standing tall at around 5'11", she maintained a slender figure, likely weighing around 140 pounds. Her occupation as a nurse in the pediatric department showcased her compassion for others. From the moment we met, her authentic nature and magnetic charm drew me in. We enjoyed breakfast on my patio, and our conversation eventually turned to my plans and the possibility of divorce. Though a sensitive topic, Diane was understanding and offered her support. I understood her need to clarify my intentions before investing emotionally in our connection. No woman wants to invest time in a man who might reconcile with his estranged wife. As I explained Jessica's peculiar justification for leaving, Diane's expression confirmed what I suspected: she didn't believe Jessica would return. Her insight nudged me toward the next phase of my plan. On Monday morning, I contacted my lawyer to assign an investigator to the case. I wanted to know how many men Jessica was involved with before serving her with divorce papers. It turned out she was dating multiple men, mostly married, gathering at Sarah's apartment for post-club meetups. 2 weeks later, Jessica received the divorce petition, marking the start of a tumultuous period. That night, she showed up at the house, visibly distressed, holding a large brown envelope. I greeted her at the door, asking, "Jessica, what brings you here tonight?" She replied, "Tom, a guy delivered these papers to me today. Why did you file for divorce?" I mentioned I'd be home soon, possibly even this week. We can start planning for that baby we discussed. Inviting her inside, I gestured for her to sit in the kitchen, explaining, "It's too late for that now, Jessica. I made it clear when you left that I didn't want you to go, but you chose to leave." Attempting to justify herself, she said, "Tom, I explained that I needed to discover myself and feel confident." Cutting her off with a touch of sarcasm, I asked, "So, do you feel confident now? Are you fulfilled as a woman? Have you explored your desires, met intriguing people, and had your fair share of physical encounters?" Growing increasingly frustrated, I pressed on, "Because it certainly seems like it to me. I've hardly heard from you since you left. You didn't even bother to call me on my birthday, probably too busy with one of your flings in the Dominican Republic that week. Your own mother reached out to me, wondering why you didn't call her on Mother's Day. Have you spent this entire time chasing after physical pleasure?" she pleaded. "Tom, I love you so much, and I realize I may have gone too far. I'm coming back home." I stood my ground. "No, you're not." "Tom, what are you talking about? I'm still your wife, and this is still my home. I'm going back to Sarah's place to gather my belongings, and I'll be back in a few hours." I clarified, "Actually, you can't. Did you go through all the papers in that package you got? Towards the end, there's a judge's ruling stating that you're prohibited from being within 500 feet of this house until the divorce is completed. Technically, you're breaking that court order by being here now. I won't push it, but you need to go, and we can handle this legally to figure things out." Jessica was gradually grasping the gravity of our marriage vows, which encompassed promises such as love, respect, cherish, faithfulness, and the vital component of fidelity. I made it clear that this house didn't hold sentimental value for me. If she wanted it, that was fine. My half, nearly $150,000 was almost paid off, so she could purchase it for that amount. However, if she wasn't willing to pay, we would sell it and divide the proceeds. It was a simple arrangement, but for now she wasn't returning while I stayed in the house. I escorted her to the door, closed and locked it behind her. A month later, without the need for a court appearance, we quietly settled our divorce. Jessica received her rightful half of our assets. We sold the house and I moved forward with my life. Jessica resumed her routine, but I heard from a friend that her charter school had advised her to keep her personal life more discreet. Some parents had learned of her involvement with multiple men in the area and were uncomfortable with her teaching their children. Particularly outspoken were the mothers, who seemed especially uneasy about the situation, suspecting some of the fathers may have been involved with her. Subsequently, Jessica was diagnosed with a sexually transmitted disease, not life-threatening but requiring a year of abstinence, which wasn't a concern as she was already pregnant. It appeared one of her partners had fathered the child. Jessica's failure to consistently take birth control, her frequent drinking, and the lack of contraceptive use were contributing factors. The father remained unidentified but bore a striking resemblance to one of the teachers at her school, a married man. My divorce was finalized, freeing me from Jessica. It has been about a year since the turmoil with her began. I bought a new house, got promoted at work, and most importantly, Diane and I are now living together. We're excited to share 2 big announcements. We're getting married this summer, and we're expecting to become parents around Christmas.